some discipline.
You're listening to Hart Beat Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hart Beat Radio. I am your friendly neighborhood wrestling historian, Matthew Merz, and I am so excited to get this show started because we are live at the Dan Gable Museum in Waterloo, Iowa, and Bruce and Bob have an action-packed show for us today. So let me bring Bob Johnson on right now. He is a mover and shaker in the wrestling business. He is running all over the Hall of Fame, finding different guests to bring on, and we have a star-studded evening tonight. Bob Johnson, how are you, sir?
Good, Matt. Thanks very much for being the broadcaster this evening. And, we're coming live from the Dan Gable Museum. I'm surrounded by so many great people in the wrestling business. I'm going to bring them all on to say a few great words about wrestling and the Dan Gable Museum, and maybe a story, too, about Owen. But I've got several people going to be on shortly. And I'm going to bring the host of Hart Beat Radio on. He's got a few words, and then we'll pass it around, and we'll start bringing several guests on. Thanks, Matt, and here's Bruce Hart.
Thanks very much, Bob. It's a real honor to be here celebrating my brother Owen's life and his induction into the prestigious Dan Gable, Thesz, George Tragos Hall of Fame. So I'm really elated that they've seen fit to induct Owen and such a long lineage of great wrestling people from Thesz and George Gordienko, Luther Lindsay, and my dad, and so many others. So I know Owen would be delighted and thrilled to be included and so that's why we're all here, and I'm really, profoundly indebted to people like Kyle Kling and Dan Gable for seeing fit to honor Owen, and hope the listeners out there kind of enjoy some Owen stories, and there's a lot of my wrestling colleagues here that are going to just reflect and offer some perspectives, maybe some Owen stories and such. And I'd also like to thank my brothers and sister for being here as well. It's kind of a really amazing group.
Okay, Bruce, Hart Beat Radio. Just before we bring on the brothers and sisters of Bruce, I'm going to bring on some special guests for a few minutes, longtime friends of Hart Beat Radio. I'm going to turn over to a good friend of ours, Mr. Jason Sanderson. Welcome to Hart Beat Radio, live here from the Dan Gable Museum.
Thank you very much, Bob and Bruce and everyone else. It's great being here, being part of this event, and myself being not just a wrestler, but also a fan and a historian, seeing all the work that they put into making this, making this be possible. Here with Scott Teal and, some of the people that have gone to such great lengths to record the achievements of all the people that we're honoring. Owen, especially this week. If anybody has a chance to come to the museum and see the wall, it's quite a constellation of wrestling stars and luminaries. And, it's an experience that I would really encourage everybody that loves wrestling and our history and our legacy to come because, yes, wrestling can be a work, but here you get to see the shoot that goes in behind it. And you get to see the heart, the soul, the sweat, the blood, and the tears, of everything that we've seen on TV. So to see all the substance, this is where you need to come. And it's really great to be here celebrating it with the Heart and with Hart Beat Radio and all of your listeners.
Thank you very much, Jason. And I do want to point out to the fans to let them know a little bit about the George Tragos Thesz Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. It's actually part of the National United States Wrestling Hall of Fame, and it's so prestigious that only two people are being inducted this evening, one being Owen Hart, the other being Dan the Beast Severn. Other wrestlers are going to receive awards, though, this evening. I understand that Booker T will be receiving the Thesz Award. Brusier Brody is getting the Frank Gotch Award. Ben Askren is getting the George Tragos Award, and Koji Miyamoto is getting the Jim Melby Award. So a very prestigious Hall of Fame. It's one of the 3 most important Hall of Fames you'll find in the United States.
And Matt, listen, I've got another gentleman just walked in the room. Mr. Tony Garea has got a few words. Welcome, Tony, to the Hart Beat Radio here from the Dan Gable Museum.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really, really impressed. The first time I've been to this museum and Hall of Fame, and I was looking through the walls there, and I see Earl McCready that I almost forgot about Earl McCready, but as soon as I seen his name, I remembered who he was. I remember my dad talking about him. He came to New Zealand probably in the 50s. That's when we didn't have television there, but we had radio, and we had commentators commentating the match, and we had a blind commentator. And this is a fact. And the commentator would say, "Well, did you see that move, Peter?" He said, "That was absolutely fantastic." I said, "Blind Peter." So we had a little humor.
Did he go on to become a referee?
No. We had too many blind referees at the time.
Okay.
And then, of course, Pat O'Connor, I see him, another New Zealander. And, of course, it's great to see that Brusier Brody is being honored here. And I remember meeting Brusier one time. I was doing a tour of Australia, a short tour, and I had the privilege of wrestling him in Brisbane, Australia. And it was just fantastic. It's one of the matches that I remember, and it's never to be forgotten. It's a damn shame what happened to him.
Did you ever get a chance to be in the ring with Lou?
Lou who?
Lou Thesz.
Oh, no. Oh,
Heard of him?
Yes. I was the youngest, and I repeat, the youngest in the Old Timers Battle Royal at the Meadowlands, New Jersey. And I did have contact with Lou, but I was the youngest. So I think he had a little sympathy for me because I was young, so he didn't hurt me. But once again, it's great to be here, and it's great to be on Hart Radio, and wish to say hello to all the wrestling fans out there, and don't ever miss a session of Hart Radio. Thank you, Bob.
Tony Garea, man, thank you very much, Tony. Another gentleman just walked in, and I'm going to turn it over to our good friend, Mr. Herb Simmons. Herb, a few words to Hart Beat Radio.
Well, Bob, thanks. It's always a pleasure to be on Hart Beat Radio, and I second the motion on Tony's. If you're out there listening to Hart Beat Radio, and if it's your first time or if you've been listening, tell your family or friends, because these guys do a great job. And what an honor it is for me to be sitting here amongst the family of wrestling. I mean, this museum is great, but it stepped up a little bit with putting Owen into the Hall of Fame here in Waterloo, Iowa. And as Tony said, it's a great place to come. And for me to be able to sit in here with people who can go back, their father trained many of the wrestlers in the dungeon. And that legacy is still out there today. That's what we're lacking now, is a dungeon. And we're lacking somebody as your father to train some of these boys out here today. But it's really an honor. Like I said, I'm here for the celebration. I'll be taking part of the Brusier Brody Roundtable on Saturday. Our good friend Barbara and Brody's wife is with us, and there is sister Gail. It's an all-star card here in Waterloo, Iowa this weekend. And
thank you very much for coming on Hart Beat Radio. And I'd like to bring another good friend of Hart Beat Radio, Mr. Scott Teal. Welcome to Waterloo, Iowa. Welcome back to Hart Beat Radio.
It's great to be here, Bob, and I appreciate you inviting me to take part in this. Before I get started, I just want to say I learned something today, and I am absolutely shocked. But I grew up watching pro wrestling. I started watching in 1968 in Florida. And you talk about wrestling, and Jason Sanderson just sat down here a minute ago and said wrestling was a work. I just can't believe it. And when you grow up in Florida wrestling, it wasn't a work. But anyway, I'm glad to be here. And I never had the opportunity to meet Owen, but I wish I had. I had several opportunities to talk with his father, Stu Hart. And what a wonderful person he was. He told great stories. I mean, he could just tell you stories over and over and over. And I was just honored to be able to talk with him. And I'm sorry I never got the opportunity to interview Owen. I've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of guys in the business, but he would have had a great story to tell of somebody. I guess he did have a book. Did he have a book? No, he didn't. Okay. I'm just sad. That's part of what I do. I think it's so important to sit down with these guys while they're still alive, because once the wrestlers are gone, all the great stories, all the great memories and information about the business just disappears. And it's a shame.
And what are the last couple books you released, Scott?
Well, the last couple have been history books, the history of Madison Square Garden, and the history of pro wrestling in Nashville, Tennessee. I just finished writing the Rocky Johnson's book, Rocky Johnson being the father of Dwayne Johnson. That's going to be out next year through ECW Press. And I'm working on several other history books right now. So, but I'm glad to be here. This museum is just great. It's a wonderful place. I would invite anybody that gets an opportunity just to come here and be a part of it. It's great to mingle with some of the great. I mean, here I am sitting with three of the great Hart boys. I mean, it's just, when I grew up in Florida and started watching in '68, I never dreamed I'd be sitting here with these legends of pro wrestling. And I've been around the business. I've been in the business since 1975, but I am still a fan as much as I've ever been. And I tell people all the time, I hear people say, I hope they don't think I'm a mark. Well, I tell people I am a mark. I'll always be a mark for the business. I love the wrestling business. Thank you very much.
That's Mr. Scott Teal. Thank you, Scott. And then I'm turning to my right and just walked in. On my right, we have a couple of lovely ladies. We have the sister of Brusier Brody, Gail Ellison. She's going to, Gail, you got a few words here at Hart Beat Radio.
I want to thank Bob for asking me to join you, and I want to say to the whole wrestling community here in Hart Radio that I feel it's a privilege to be included with this close family. I never realized while my brother was alive the camaraderie and the warmth and that the wrestling profession possessed. And I had the privilege of meeting the Hart family, some of them, and Herb and Mickey I consider wonderful people. And of course, Barbara and I go back to 1979 or something. I want to thank you all for remembering my brother and remembering all the wrestling stars, because all these lives are lives to remember. They were well lived and they should be remembered. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to turn this over to Barbara Goodish. Welcome to Waterloo, Iowa.
Well, thank you, Bob. Once again, it's a privilege to be around the wrestling family, which I lost when my late husband, Brusier Brody, passed on, and to be back in the wrestling community and the wrestling family. It is just such an honor, because it was so hard being away. And for him to be honored 30 years, this is his 30th anniversary, was the 17th of July.
Wow.
And the people, the fans that contacted me, and I just couldn't. I was overwhelmed with the messages, and I can't say enough for the Hart Beat Radio and the Hart family and everyone associated with the wrestling business. It's like, and to still be remembered that he left such a legacy for so long, that I am overwhelmed. And to be here in this incredible organization, and for him to be getting an award at this time is, I mean, it just makes, I can hardly find the words to express to everybody out there that keeps his memory alive. And I just want to thank each and every one, whoever is listening. And just thank you from his family for keeping his memory alive. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Barbara.
Well, I tell you, I've met so many wonderful people. One of the really good guys got two of them right beside me, Mr. Bill Murdoch. He's got a few words to the great people here of Hart Beat Radio worldwide, and we're live again from Waterloo, Iowa, Dan Gable Museum. What a great time. Bill, a couple words here for the fans of Hart Beat worldwide.
Well, thank you, Bob. It's always a pleasure seeing you and Mr. Brisco and everyone. Again, we've been here since this is our 20th year, so I'm sure you'll stop poking me in the ribs. I could probably talk a little bit better, but anyway, it's been 20 years, with the Thesz, Dan Gable Hall of Fame, and all these great Hall of Famers here, and such a great class going in today too, and certainly the support that wrestling has given so many folks here, and especially what we do with Headlock on Hunger in Asheville. And I know Jason Sanderson is a big part of that. Jerry Brisco is on the board and a big part of that. And we make sure that no child in the community is hungry during the summer and during longer breaks. And we just did our Headlock on Hunger food drive with Ingles Markets and Arby's, and J.J. Dillon was there. Beth Phoenix was there. We collected more than 25,000 pounds of food in one day. And this summer we've distributed more than 80,000 meals. And so wrestling has a big part of that. Oh, well, thank you. And it's a great honor, and to have everybody involved in knowing that when you're hungry, nothing else matters, and brings all of wrestling together and shows that the true champion is not just in the ring, but certainly outside of the ring.
Thanks, Bill. And again, we have turn the phone over to another great friend of Hart Beat Radio. We have Mr. Jerry Brisco. Welcome, Jerry, to Hart Beat Radio. How are you?
Thank you, Bob. Pleasure always to be on Hart Beat Radio.
All yours.
Mr. Brisco, can you give us a memory of Owen?
Can I give you a memory of Owen? I can give you several memories of Owen. He pestered me so bad and made me so mad so many times I wanted to kill him, but I was smarter than that and knew I couldn't kill him. I knew I couldn't beat a Hart. I knew I didn't want to go in that dungeon, so I left him alone. I let him harass me. I'll tell you a story that he really liked, but you go on these tours. They're once in a lifetime tours. So where are we at? Barbara Goodish is poking me in the stomach. If she pokes me any lower, I'm gonna tell on her. But she got me in the stomach. Anyway, Barbara, shame on you. But anyway, back to Owen. Barbara, you gonna let me tell this Owen Hart story? Anyway, Frank Goodish, he was the most intimidating person I ever stepped in the ring with, by the way. Frank Goodish was. Not Owen Hart, but Frank Goodish was. Most intimidating guy I ever stepped in the ring with. And I got a dear friend, Jim Dushin, that was an All-American at Iowa State University. Jim went to Iowa State, and he was there at the same time that Frank was there. And he and Jim became buddies right away, even though Frank wasn't a college wrestler or anything, and Jim was an All-American wrestler. He just saw this guy and his personality, and they become dear friends. And he comes out to Cauliflower Alley out in Las Vegas, and he heard Barbara was going to be there. Of course, he wanted to meet Barbara. Who doesn't want to meet Barbara? She's so beautiful and such a beautiful lady. But anyway, she's poking me elsewhere. I'm not going to say where she's poking me now, but she's poking me elsewhere. But anyway, Jim said Frank was one of the most fearsome guys ever stepped on campus in Ames, Iowa. But back to Owen Hart, we were in South Africa, and I got to tell you, the Dwayne Johnson, before Dwayne Johnson was The Rock, he was just a pebble at the time, and the sand and the desert and Saudi Arabia, and we were riding camels, and the camels would picking up those little pebbles and rock everywhere, rock going left, right. But Owen said, "Hey, Brisco, you want me to take a picture of you guys?" I said, "Sure." So it was back in those days. I forgot what kind of camera it is, but you could do those panoramic shots. You could do the square shots. You could do just about what you can do with an iPhone now, but you could do it back then with a regular telephone. And so I said, sure, Owen, would you be? So, of course, Owen, the great river that he was, and all these little pebbles, not rock, picking up, riding these camels. But anyway, we're riding the camel. I get up, I spur mine. That's old cowboy Oklahoma talk for kicking them in the rib to make them pick up the tempo a little bit, so I can get up next to the star, Dwayne Johnson, the pebble, the rock, pebble at that time, but the rock now. So anyway, where am I? Owen Hart. I give Owen my phone. I said, here, Owen, take the pictures. So, of course, he takes the pictures. And, you got to hit a rewind to go to the next photograph. Well, Owen never hit the rewind. He double exposed all my pictures. So here I'm on this once-in-a-lifetime trip with Dwayne, the rock, the pebble at the time, Johnson, and I think I'm getting all these wonderful photographs by Owen Hart. Well, what a great token of friendship that Owen was paying me by doing this. And so I finally get back to the United States of America, take my little cassette, my little reel, or whatever those things were called back then. What were they called, Barbara? Well, you're poking me in an instrument, Rose. Well, our hippie days we call Rose something else, but Owen did especially. I don't know what he was rolling back in those days, but he was rolling something special too. Owen Hart was kind of funny like that. But anyway, where am I? So I take him to the photographer. I said, Mr. Photographer, would you please develop the precious, priceless, never duplicated, and never can be duplicated photograph that I took of Dwayne the Rock Pebble Johnson on a camel in Kuwait, or somewhere like Oman or Iman or Bahrain, one of those funny countries like that. But anyway, it was a great trip. So they all come back and they were double exposed. I couldn't tell rock from the guy that was driving the lead camel. And Owen called me. Owen couldn't wait to call me. Owen called me one day, and I thought it was kind of strange that Owen Hart called me. What's Owen Hart calling me? What did I do this time? Because I was kind of the negotiator. I was kind of the booker at the time. I figured, well, I screwed up for sure because Owen Hart's called me. Either I screwed him around or Davey around or Brad around or Stu around, and they're going to kick my ass as soon as I go in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So I didn't book any flights to Calgary because I knew going through customs I'd be because of the Hearts. So anyway, he called me. He said, have you got your photographs back? My photographs back? What are you talking about, Owen? The photographs I took of you and Dwayne over in Saudi Arabia. I said, no, matter of fact, I'm going. He said, well, I'll call you back in an hour. How long is it going to take? I said, about an hour. He said, I'll call you back about an hour, hour and a half. Well, what the hell is going on? Owen, what's the deal? So he hung up, just click. Not bye, not speak you later, not call you back, just click. I'll call you back in an hour, click. I'm here holding the phone. We wouldn't have had cell phones back in those days. It was a damn walkie-talkie type phone. So anyway, I go to a photographer place where they develop films. I think it was called Herb Simmons Quick Photo Lab. So Herbie, make these up for me real quick. So Herbie made them up real quick. They were kind of out of focus because Herbie keeps teaching playing anyway. He's just like a referee. He always was like a referee. Couldn't see it all. So anyway, I got the photographs and I looked at it. First one I pulled out, camel with 3 heads, and Dwayne Pebble Rock Johnson with 2 heads, and it didn't look anything at all like Dwayne the Rock Johnson's supposed to look. It looked like a camel head and had been transplanted on top of Dwayne the Rock Pebble Johnson's head because Owen had double exposed all my damn photographs. And Bill Murdoch's sitting here showing off his shiny Hall of Fame ring, Outstanding American from the North Carolina chapter of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, which, by the way, in case you didn't know, I'm getting bestowed that honor coming up in August. And Kyle Klingman, the director of the Dan Gable Museum, is coming down and representing the National Wrestling Hall of Fame to come down and represent to honor me. And he didn't do that for you, did he, Bill? Well, I guess.
Congratulations.
That's for me. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I really appreciate Kyle Kleeman. If anybody knows Kyle Kleeman, he's like Herb Simmons. He don't reach in the pocket for nothing. And by the way, Kyle's mother used to have a crush on me when I was a senior in high school. Kyle Kleeman's mother and I went to high school together. So where's the story going, Barbara? What are you going to have? Oh, no, anyway, Owen Hart. That's what we're talking about. And damn Harts. If you don't have a story about Owen Hart, you don't know Owen Hart. Owen Hart, besides being one of the greatest rivers in the business, was one of the greatest guys in the business. One of the most unselfish and giving performers I'd ever been associated with. Owen would do anything in the world that he could to make the match get over, no matter if he was getting his hand raised or not getting his hand raised. Owen Hart was one of the greatest guys. When you went in the ring and saw him perform, you knew you were getting your money's worth. So long live Owen Hart's memory, and long live the Hart family memory. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I got more stories.
We'll be having this mic back to you shortly, and got a gentleman coming in. Got a few words, Mr. Tom Simon. Tom, a few words to Hart Beat Radio.
Bob, thanks. We had talked earlier. We had talked earlier about doing the show in November, and I didn't know time flies really quick around here. But I am seated amongst wrestling royalty. I had the opportunity to meet Bruce and Keith tonight. I've had the honor to meet Diane and Ross years and years ago in Las Vegas at Cauliflower Alley. Jason's here, Herb's here. Herb and I, way back. Jerry, I see every year at Cauliflower Alley. I am just have been blessed by having the opportunity to watch Owen for as many years as he worked. And the best thing about it is the words, "I am not a nugget," came out of his mouth, and I said, nobody but him could pull that off and make it sound like gold. Because everybody thought they were ribbing Owen by saddling him with this nugget thing. But Owen took it, ran with it, and made it the storyline of the year. He made it polished up, and it was the shiniest nugget you'd ever want to see. You'd pay money to see that
Absolutely.
nugget. But the great thing about it is I've had the pleasure of seeing the Hart family work years and years and years, and it is some of the greatest memories that I've had. And I've worked in the business for a while. I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of great people, and I just cannot say how blessed I have been to have the opportunity to work with all these folks or watch these folks.
Wonderful.
Because as a fan, it was just as great as standing next to them in the ring. And I can't be more blessed. I'm just about retired now, but I can always be talked out for one more match. So to all of the Harts, I thank you so much for all the memories, for all the years. Ross, you always have a seat at my table at CAC.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
And Diane, after meeting you the last few years, you always have a smile on your face when I see you. You walk up to me with a big smile on your face. It's great to know the Harts. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Yes. Tom Simon. Thank you, Tom. And Ken Bob Johnson, Hart Beat Radio worldwide. We are in something like 74 countries. We're in Australia. We're in all through Europe now. We've just picked up the Philippines. We've got people all over. And this is a special edition of Hart Beat Radio live from the Dan Gable Museum in Waterloo, Iowa. And beside me is the man who's responsible for this great event. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Kyle Kleeman, Executive Director of the Dan Gable Museum. Kyle, welcome back to Hart Beat Radio. Thank you.
Jerry's the only one that didn't clap, so I don't know what happened there. I don't know what went wrong there, but we love having Jerry in Waterloo, most popular man when he comes back in Waterloo. He does a lot for us, so appreciate it. But just quick, man, Owen going into the Hall of Fame, what a special deal having the Hart come and represent. This is a huge honor for us. This is the third Hart family member to go in. We've had Stu, we've had Brett, now we have Owen, and everything I hear is just nothing but positive. It's fun to just go back in the archives and learn more about Owen and his life, but not only to learn about them, but to learn about the whole Hart family. They represent what professional wrestling is all about. They embody the entire profession in such a positive way. So just to be on this radio show and to articulate that and then recognize them in this Hall of Fame means a lot. So thanks for having me on, and appreciate you, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phil, and great job as usual. And this is there's many events in wrestling, and this is my favorite one. So I'll let you know that officially of all the other ones. But the other ones are good, but this is the one I like best. Anyway, I'm going to start turning this over to the family guys now. Mr. Ross Hart, welcome to Hart Beat Radio. Ross from the Dan Gable Museum.
Hey Bob, it's great to be here. We're really honored that Owen has been inducted. It's a testament to his wrestling abilities. He was a great performer in the ring, but he was also a great amateur that devoted a lot of his life to wrestling. He wrestled throughout junior high and high school and was on the University of Calgary team and got a scholarship there and qualified for the Nationals. And he went through the dungeon, and he loved watching my dad perform and stretch a lot of guys, but he didn't mind being stretched himself. He wanted to experience what my dad could teach, even if he had to go through the pain and agony of that. And Owen developed a lot of toughness for that. And he was the youngest of all the boys in the family, but I think he looked up to all his older brothers and learned a lot from all of them, and he became a real leader in his own right. But he did so much in the wrestling industry, and I'm really honored that the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame here is inducting him, and he'll have a special place with Brett and my dad, and who knows, there may be others in our family to follow him, because a lot of us I think contributed to wrestling in many ways, and did a lot either as performers or as teachers or trainers or in other roles. But we're really excited that Owen's have been honored, and I'm going to pass the mic on to Bruce and Keith here, but hopefully we'll be able to share some of Owen's memories, some of his lighthearted ones. He had a great sense of humor. He was a prankster. He was a river, but he also was a great family man, a very devoted husband and father, and always close to his parents and us as a family. And it's a shame that we lost him when we did, but we've always had his memories, and it's been 19 years since he passed, but I'm glad that he's being inducted in this very prestigious Hall of Fame. I'll pass it on to Keith, and thanks for having us on.
Thanks, Ross. I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the Frank Goodish's family. I had the honor to wrestle with him in summer of '86 at the Hot Summer's Night in Honolulu at the Oahu Stadium, and it's got to be the craziest match I ever had in my life. They had barbed wire around the ring instead of ropes, and it was about 8 men in the ring at one time, and he was a monster of a man. When I first met him, he was intimidating. He's scary as hell to look at. He was all muscle, and he was about 6'8", and he had that braided hair. He looked like something from Game of Thrones, and he was one of the finest gentlemen I ever met in the dressing room and in the ring. And I thought we were going to have a long relationship in wrestling, and I was heartbroken when he was taken from us so wrongly. And there's a lot in common between him and Owen, and it's
my heart goes out to them. They know what it feels like to feel pain, and that's not a work. That's a very sincere thing. But anyway, to do with Owen, I'm sitting here with my beautiful sister Diana, and I just want to say how proud we all were of Owen and Diana. We had a big family, 12 kids, and Owen and Diana were they're like I think my mom said it best when she said we saved our best for last when they had them, and they were both just terrific people to have in the family. And Owen was everybody's favorite. I remember the older kids, the boys wanted Owen to be hanging out with them, but the girls, because Owen was so cute and it's like a little live teddy bear, they all wanted him. It was like a tug of war every time. The boys wanted Owen to play football, and the girls just wanted to have Owen hanging around. He was a wonderful, sweet, adorable guy. He was known for playing ribs, but he was maybe the best family man I ever met. When he did, I was working at the fire hall when he died, and I got a call from the chief, and it seems like a nightmare that you're going to wake up from, and he's going to be here. So you miss him every day, and but you appreciate and enjoy the special times you had. I wish I could tell you stories like we were talking about in the car driving down here for the last 2 days from Calgary, Alberta to Iowa. It's like being on the road again, but I wish we could have the phone on then, because there's a lot we didn't. We drove 24 hours and never stopped talking about him. He was a wonderful guy. We miss him a lot. I'll give you Bruce.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thanks very much. One of the people in our family that was closest in age to Owen and really close to him in so many ways was my sister Diana. She was married to Davy Boy, who was really close with Owen on the road, and to maybe just get some Owen stories or memories from Diana on Owen, and let her give her perspective.
Okay, thanks, Bruce. Thanks, everybody, for such nice things being shared by everybody. It's funny and eloquent and sentimental and emotional, and it's a really great thing to be a part of. Owen and I had grown up going, being the babies of the family, but Owen was sort of more bold and I was more shy, so he pushed the envelope more than I did, but I was certainly involved in a lot of things that he was, without even realizing it. He could get me to do things that were, like for one, he'd be I did work on the road with Owen and Davey for a little bit in the 90s as their manager, and Owen would tell you that somebody was, like, there was this one guy at a show in Los Angeles, and he was he did look a lot like Danny Partridge from the Partridge Family, and Owen told me that it was Donnie Bonaducci, or I can't remember if that was Danny, and he said, yeah, that's him, you should go up and ask him for his autograph, and I'm going to get with him later, but just, so I went up and asked him for his autograph, and he signed it like that Flintstones with Gus Schultz and Rock Quarry. Like, he signed his name. It was just like Ted Morrow or something. And I said, I've just been such a fan of yours. And he just had no idea what I was talking about. No one was laughing his head off about it. And he just did these things all the time where he'd open the door with I don't know if Jerry would remember this, but he'd open the door where some of the dressing room door and throw a bunch of lit firecrackers in there and then slam the door, and you'd hear the firecrackers going off. And he's just they were kind of harmless little pranks, but they would crack you up later. Even like many years later, I've thought about them and just burst out laughing in the middle of the day with nobody knowing why I'm laughing. But yeah, he was really thoughtful and protective of me too, and stuck up for me on the playground and stuff, because we were kind of the loners, the elementary school when Ross had gone on to the junior high school. And I don't know why, I guess it was the wrestling, then we were the farm kids, and people used to target us, and it was not always we were kind of sensitive, actually, despite what people thought, and it really hurt our feelings to get picked on or have people stealing your marbles and stuff. So I remember Owen sticking up for me, and he had like a runny nose and kind of looked like Woodstock with messy hair, and he was smaller than these guys that were taunting me and him. But he was really brave and funny, and had a great great outlook on everything. He was always pretty happy, and I was delighted when he and Davey finally became tag team partners, because they had a blast, and then I got to be a part of that. And that was some of the best. I have great memories of being a mom and being a daughter and a sister and stuff, but when I was part of the times with Owen and Davey, and everything was just great, and it was hard to that was the best. Some of the best days of my whole life was just being with them. So, but Owen had we went through everything from learning how to swim together and taking gymnastics, and my friends were his friends and vice versa, and he spent a lot of time with everyone. Like the older brothers were, like Keith said, they were very anxious to show Owen how everything was done, how to drive, how to wrestle, how to play ribs, how to I think Ross was very good with teaching Owen things like how to clean up in his room. Like they were Ross and Owen were like reminded me of Felix and Oscar, and Owen was Oscar and Ross was Felix, and I think Owen went out of his way to be deliberately disorganized just to see if he could get Ross to do it for him. But Owen was just, I don't know, I can see a lot of Owen in my own son Harry, and sometimes I think I lucked out there. I don't know with the other. I'm sure there's a bit of Owen in all of the nieces and nephews and stuff, but I really see a little of Owen in Harry, and my brother Dean and Harry. And I feel like sometimes the stuff that comes out of Harry is like a direct something coming right straight from Owen or Dean, and I feel quite grateful, but it's hard to, not, I don't want to put just best to not put Harry on the spot with it, but I know there's some strong genetics there that coming through in Harry, so I'm glad. But anyway, I'm just, getting very nostalgic here, and just it's great being Owen's little big sister, and he was. I wish his own kids could have known him the way my kids knew Owen. Just the age difference is a little bit more than my kids are a little older than Owen's kids, but I feel like I got to know the best things about Owen and my whole family and all the people in the wrestling, and just who knew Owen through school, and like we got to know a really special, really extraordinary person. I think he was the best of my mom and dad and of my whole family. He had so much he was influenced so much by everyone. So when people think he was as marvelous as he really was, it has a lot to do with how the world and the family and wrestling and all of us molded him. So I think he kind of has a bit of everybody that knew him or whose lives he touched or they touched his. He was absorbed it all. So we all can take our hats off to each other. So anyway, I'm going to pass the phone on to somebody else now.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Nice talking to you again. I love the applause in the back. That's great.
Hello, Matt, and listen. So, thank you very much for doing the show from Portland Wrestling, Mr. Matt Merz. About a hand for Matt Merz.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I transcend Portland Wrestling, Bob Johnson. Oh, thank you for the applause. We need applause all the time on this show. That's great.
I go back with the Hart family, something like 45 years ago, and what a marriage, you might say. And Owen, what a
you're kind of like the consigliere, right, to the Godfather?
Yeah, consigliere. How do you?
Tom Hagen.
Consigliere.
Concierge.
Wasn't it Tom Hagen?
Yeah.
Tom Hagen. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah. But I know Bruce and I drove from Calgary to Winnipeg, which is 13 hours, and then we drove from Winnipeg to Waterloo, which is another 13 hours. And we talked about Owen Hart and Stampede Wrestling days for 25 hours straight. And I know that Owen, what an interesting, great guy he was, one of my favorite people in the world ever. And we're going to really miss him. And I know Bruce and I were talking about some of the really we've been talking about ribs, but Owen had some really interesting local ribs they did with Stampede Wrestling. I'm going to turn this back to Bruce. I think Bruce can do it. Okay. This is we had a couple that we wanted to talk about. One got a little bit X-rated, so we thought, for the sake of Hart Beat Radio, we don't want to offend anybody worldwide, so I'll get Bruce to talk.
How disappointing.
I'll get
wrestling fans know not to get offended.
Yeah, we might do that on the director's cut or something, but anyway, I'm going to turn it back to Bruce, and I know he had a couple of good rib stories. Bruce Hart.
Great.
I won't digress too much, but I remember one kind of funny one. We were out in this summer resort town in British Columbia called Kelowna, and Owen and I were on one side of this stone wall at the beach, and we heard Brian Pillman, who was a bit of a notorious womanizer, engaging in this conversation with this supposedly hot babe or whatever, and he was arranging to rendezvous with her after the matches that night. I think we had a show in some place about 60 miles away called Salmon Arm or something like that. And anyway, initially just to get a rise out of Brian Pillman, we had Bob Johnson, who was lining up the towns. We had him come in and tell Brian Pillman that we had to do a say no to drugs speech to the seniors lodge, and initially we had no plan at all about going to this place, but Brian reacted so vehemently and vociferously, and throwing a bunch of F-bombs and about having to say no to drugs to a bunch of seniors who were only drugs that they might be on was Geritol or something like that. But anyway, it became a challenge to Owen, so he actually had Bob and all the wrestlers showed up at this seniors lodge after the matches unannounced, and we got this caretakers turning on the lights, and Owen says we drove all the way from Calgary to mention we were wrestling in town that night or anything, but as if that was our only mission, was to do this long, drawn-out say no to drugs sermon to these seniors. And this caretaker finally said that the regional health board, those guys never tell me anything and all like that. So anyway, next thing, all these seniors are being woken up in the middle of the night and dragged out in their wheelchairs and their walkers. And Brian Pillman proceeded to give the most half-hearted, I know some of you are tempted to take drugs or crack or cocaine or freebase or whatever. I'm just saying no. And then he turns to Bob Johnson and says, let's get the hell out of here. In the meantime, Owen had got this caretaker and say, you don't have any food or coffee or whatever. And he said, I've got some Sara Lee cake in the fridge or something like that. So next thing, they dragged this thing out for about another hour or so, and Brian's getting more and more angry. And then, anyway, we finally drove back to this town, and Brian thought he would have access to the ring van so he could go rendezvous with his hot date or whatever. And I think Owen had Bob Johnson take off in the van or something like that. And Brian had to hitchhike, and it was pouring rain by this time. And right around that time, Owen and I noticed this it was kind of a mangy old stray dog hanging around the parking lots. And Owen and I took the dog and put it in Brian's bed. And as we were coming in there, Owen said, let's dress it up in Brian's ring clothes. So he put all that on the dog, and then just add a little bit more dimension to it. Owen screwed out all the light bulbs in the room, and he filled this waste paper basket full of water and put it up on top of the bathroom door. And so about 3 a.m, Brian returned, had missed the bar, and he turns on the light and hear him swearing, and he went into the bathroom and turned the light on, and it was off in there, and he slammed the door, and the waste paper basket full of water came down and hit him on the head and split his head open, and he was like soaking wet and bleeding, and the dog freaked out and tried to attack him. So I remember the next day Ross had got a complaint from the hotel management about one of the wrestlers creating a disturbance about 3 a.m, and Ross admonished Brian, who claimed that a dog wearing a sports coat quote him, tried to attack him at 3 a.m, and Owen convinced Ross that Brian must have been higher on drugs or something. And I remember years after that, Brian Pillman was always telling me about that dog in the sports coat trying to attack him and all this other, and never quite knew. And Owen was always gaining amusement from that. But that was just sort of one of the typical Owen stories. That there was another one. I won't digress too much farther. This was at WrestleMania a few years later, and Owen was starring in the WWE at this time, but there was this old wrestler that had been worked for my dad back in the 50s named Reggie Parks, and Owen was always great at impersonating these guys. So in any case, I think when Reggie was breaking in, like a lot of the other guys, he had to go down to the dungeon, and I think Stu stretched him or whatever. Any case, Owen called Stu up in his hotel room in the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, and was impersonating Reggie Park to a T. And Stu, and he was half stammering and all. The this is Reggie Parks, always out, and Stu's saying, hey, hi, Reg, what's happening? I've got a bone to pick with you, Stu. Back in 1955 or whatever, you took advantage of me as a young kid back then, and you stretched me, and Stu's starting to get what are you getting at, Reg? And finally he says, I've grown up now, Stu, and it's about time we even the score or whatever, and if you had a piece of me, Reg, go ahead. Anyway, a little bit after that, Stu and they were meeting in the lobby of the hotel, and Reggie Parks, who hadn't seen my dad in about 30 years, came up to shake his hand, and Stu said, take your best touching home, Reggie. And Reg wasn't sure why Stu was so, kind of antagonistic, or, I just wanted to shake your hand, Stu. If you think you can take me, Reg, go ahead. But that was kind of a typical Owen, kind of story. I'll let Ross tell maybe a couple.
I wasn't there firsthand, but I know he called Iron Sheik's hotel room one time as a reporter. I think for Pro Wrestling Illustrated or one of the magazines. But he called up Sheik and said he'd gotten his name from the hotel and he wanted to interview him and talk about his amateur background, because he had wrestled in Iran and been a bodyguard to Shah of Iran. And Iron Sheik was happy to talk about what he had done. He was never too indiscreet about what he had accomplished as a wrestler. And anyway, he went on, and initially Owen, as this reporter, was putting him over as a great wrestler and winning the world title from Bob Backlund. And then all of a sudden he just turned on the Iron Sheik and said, but you're just a phony wrestler. You're just a showman. None of what you're doing in the ring is real, and you're just glorified stuntman. And I bet you couldn't take me. And all of a sudden, Cosmo Missouri was just furious. The Iron Sheik said, "You motherfucker!" He said, "You think you can take me? And who the fuck are you? You doubt my amateur abilities." And anyway, it went back and forth, and Owen, went on to berate Iron Sheik and antagonize him and just say he was a phony wrestler and, couldn't handle anybody. He couldn't handle anybody in a real fight. So finally, Iron Sheik says, "Where are you, you motherfucker?" And he says, "I'm right in the hotel here." And Iron Sheik said, "Okay, I'll meet you down in the lobby right now, and we'll settle this." So Owen said, "All right, I'll be there, Sheik, put on your best hold." And I guess Sheik stormed out of his hotel room and went down to the lobby and only had a pair of shorts on. I guess it was pretty late in the morning, and looking all over for this reporter, and never did show up. But he certainly bit the bait, and had no idea that it was just somebody impersonating a reporter and calling him. And he did that to so many people, and you could never tell it was Owen. He could disguise his voice so cleverly and get through a whole conversation without laughing or flinching, and then after, he couldn't hold it in. But and even with his own family members, he could call us and call us as a credit agent or someone from a collection agency that we owed money to or something, and we would have no idea, who it was, and then finally after about 20 minutes, Owen would burst out laughing and say, "I got you, you fell for it," and we did. So, but Owen would keep us on his toes, and he had a great sense of humor, but that's what we loved about him. I'm not sure if you have any more memories, Keith, but I'll pass it on to you.
What a tribute it is to have Owen inducted into the American Wrestling Hall of Fame here. And I think he's being given back to the people, to the wrestling fans, where he belongs. It's been too long since he's been out of circulation, and who knows what he could have accomplished, how much more higher he would have gone had he not been stopped. And I'm sure we'd be inducting him into the Wrestling Hall of Fame anyway now. But it's I think it's just wonderful that he's being given back to the fans. He, after all, wrestling is it's a bit of a morality play, a good versus evil, but it's nothing without the fans. And it's one of the things that kind of tears me up now is having scripted matches where the fans aren't even included. They have to just jump in on a cue or something. But when back in the old days when we wrestled, we went and included the fans. We played to the fans, and the fans were a part of the show, and they still are now. But I don't think they're as integral to it. And Owen was wonderful at working the crowd and building them up and getting them into it. And I think it's really appropriate now that he's reintegrated back in with the fans as part of the Wrestling Hall of Fame, and it's about time. And same thing with Brusier Brody. He's back with the fans where he belongs, and we are family.
Wonderful. Thank you, Keith.
I'd just like to reiterate how honored Owen would be to be inducted in the same class as Brusier Brody and Dan Severn, and to be honored by people like Gerald Brisco and Jason Sanderson and all these other people. Owen would be humbled and honored to be included in that group. And if you're in this Hall of Fame, I encourage you all to come down there. You see all those plaques on the wall of all these people like Jack Briscoe and Dory Funk and Harley Race and all these other legendary people, Luther Lindsay and George Gordienko and Pat O'Connor and Frank Gotch and all these others. It really humbles you, and
Iron Sheik.
It's a lot different than not to be degrading the WWE Hall of Fame, but almost all these people are in there for legitimate reasons, not political reasons, and by that token, it means that much more for Owen to be included in that realm. If you go in there, I see all these people, I get goosebumps myself when I see the Lou Theszes and the George Gordienkos and the Luther Lindsays and the Jack Briscoes and all like that. It kind of makes you reflect on what a great business this has been, and I consider myself lucky and fortunate to have made the acquaintance of the Funks and the Briscoes and people like that, because they're special people, and it makes me feel that much better that my brother Brett and my dad are in that fraternity. It's a really exalted company, so I'd like to just take this opportunity to thank Kyle Klingman and Dan Gable and all these people down here. This is like wrestling's equivalent, in my estimation, of Cooperstown, New York, is to the Baseball Hall of Fame, or Canton, Ohio, to the NFL Hall of Fame. It's really rarefied air and a special place. And as soon as you step in here, you get that feeling. So I know somewhere up yonder, my brother Owen and my dad and my mom are smiling and kind of high-fiving or sitting at there and thanking somebody for the honor. And I'd just like to thank all the wrestling fans, because you're the people that ultimately make this all meaningful and possible. So thank you very much. I'll just turn over to my friend Gerald Brisco.
Certainly a pleasure when you look around this room and see the Hart family here. And that's what our business is all about, it's family. There's family everywhere you turn around. Barbara Goodish and Frank Goodish, Brusier Brody, family. Herb Simmons and his lovely wife, family. Bob Johnson and the Harts, family. Jason Sanderson sitting over there, family. Bill Murdoch, we're all family. That's what makes this business. You go down the road together hundreds and thousands of miles every day. Every day you're sacrificing. Every day you're away from your immediate family. But the great thing about it is you look over in the seat next to you, you look in the seat behind you, and there's family there. You can always, when you're on the road together, you share things that you don't even share with your immediate family. That's what makes this business what it is. That's what makes places like this Gable, Thesz, Tragos Hall of Fame what it is. People come here, and it's friendship. There's an old saying, a ring of friendship. It holds true when you come into this Waterloo, Iowa museum, and you see all these lovely people here and all these very devoted fans that come from all over the United States to drive, take their time out during the summer, and they drive from wherever to Waterloo, Iowa. And this is not the easiest place to get to. I don't care if it's from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, Tampa, Florida, or Asheville, North Carolina, or New Jersey, New Hampshire. Same, they're all the same up in the news. The news are all the same. New York, New Hampshire, New Jersey, they're all the same. New Brunswick, wherever. But anyway, we're all family here, and that's what's so great about it. You walk in, you're never alone. I saw Diana Hart, and I mean, I get thrilled every time I see one of the Harts, because the Hart family, without the Hart family, this business would be a smaller business. Without the Brisco family, that's the thing about it. There's family. There's the Briscoes. There's the Guerreros. There's the Funks. There's the Harts, of course. There's so many great families that come along, and we all have one thing in common. We want to satisfy, and we want to make the people that are buying the tickets out, sitting in the stands, that are supporting us, that makes us get on the highway and drive 200-300 miles one way and perform that night and give it 110%, 100%, everything you have in that ring for one thing, and that's for the people that come out there. And you get that feeling when you walk through the doors of this Dan Gable Museum, that this is not a place where a stranger comes in. This is a place where a family comes in. This is a place where you're appreciated. If you're a fan of amateur wrestling, professional wrestling, if you're a fan of any form of wrestling, any form of martial arts, MMA, UFC, any of those things, and you don't come to Waterloo, Iowa, or Stillwater, Oklahoma to see the National Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum, you're missing out on one of the top bucket list of places to go in the entire world. You'll walk in and you'll feel welcome. The staff at both of these facilities are wonderful people. They work hard. Kyle Klingman here, Leroy Smith in Stillwater, his crew down there, and Melissa and everybody here in this museum here in Waterloo. They're here for one thing. They're here for the passion for our industry and for our sport and for our business, professional wrestling and amateur wrestling. So I want to take this time and to the Harts and to Bob Johnson to really tell you how much I appreciate just being on your show and being a part of it. I feel like I'm a part of the Hart family. I've known them so long, and they're my brothers and sisters, and I appreciate being in that family. Thank you.
Well, to all the fans out there listening, I want to suggest if you're interested in finding out more about the National Wrestling Hall of Fame and the Dan Gable Museum, you want to go to nwhof.org. That is NWHOF, National Wrestling Hall of Fame.org.
Okay. I didn't know that, so I'm glad you told me.
Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Diana. Diana's got a few more words just before we leave.
Oh, great.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, Diana. How are you again?
Hi. I'm fine, thanks. And you?
I'm delightful.
Harry, it's been an interesting affectionate last hour being in here with everyone, and I wish Harry was here right now, and Wes. Wes Brisco was walking down the street to go back to the hotel, so I don't even know that he knew this was taking place when it was being organized, but it would have been nice to have had them in here just to hear some of the stories being told about their family, and I know they both would be huge fans of Brusier Brody's. I know Harry is fascinated with Brusier Brody's legacy, and often wonder what kind of match they would have had together over in Japan. You know, these things you wonder when it's like when you can get a video game and think, if I was wrestling, some of those video games you can like have your dream matches and stuff, but you know, maybe that could happen in a video game still, where they get the best Brusier Brody moves and the best Owen Hart moves and the best Dory Funk moves, and make it a universal video game with wrestlers from any federation wrestling. I suppose it would be a WWE game, but it'd be pretty neat to have that. You know, there's so much you can do with technology and stuff now. But yeah, it would be. I wish Harry was here. He doesn't get in till later tonight, but I can't wait for him to come here in person tomorrow and see this museum. It's amazing. It's extraordinary. All the paintings, the one that Bob did of my brother Owen and of Brusier Brody, just captures their. It brings them to life. I mean, there's so many. There's one of Iron Sheik. They're all really good. Pat O'Connor's a really good one. The Brock Lesnar one is just certain ones speak to people in different ways. But then there's the articles and the newspaper, the real programs and newspaper articles from the Olympic wrestlers and then the professional wrestlers. Also the photos, like I had never seen Bob Orton Sr., and there's his pictures on the wall here, his 8x10, and you know, and one of Freddie Blassie when he was he had darker hair, and anyway, it's fascinating. Every room you walk in, and the plaques and the articles. So I recommend anybody take a trip. Like Jerry
big is it,
said,
Diana?
It's about 2,000 square feet, maybe 3, and they're adding on. I mean, every wall is pretty full, and just the time it takes to hang the pictures. Everything is done so well, like thoughtfully. Like not one picture looks like it was squeezed in. So they had to put one picture in at the end of the wall. They'd have to hang every other picture before it. So that would take days of time to do, and you know, that just. But if you were an MMA fan or a fan of combative sports, like Jerry said, you should take the drive or the flight or whatever, the train to get here to see it, because it's and it's a nice little city. Everyone's really friendly, and they knew right away where the Dan Gable, the museum, the George Tragos Lou Thesz Hall of Fame is, and so wherever you'll be well received. So, and I'm glad to see it getting such notoriety. Thank you, Tom. He could tell I was the prestige and notoriety. It's well deserved. And another one that I thought was a great, like Mr. Perfect, and his dad is also here, which is really neat because it's like my dad and Owen and Brett. And also some nice stuff with Kurt Angle and Chael Sonnen also. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but it's so neat. It really is. They cover so much. So anyhow, Matt, yeah, you didn't get to say much there. I just kept cutting you off.
No, it's just fine. It's just fine. I was curious to know if maybe we could have Mr. Brisco come back on and tell us the difference between the Hall of Fame Museum where you're at now and then what's going on in Stillwater, because it is two separate locations, I know.
Yes, they're all under the auspices. I mean, that's a hard word. That's a Duke word that Mr. Murdoch would be very proud of me for being able to pronounce. I don't know if I pronounce it right, but that's a Duke word, a Stanford, and a Harvard word coming from an Oklahoma State boy who was Oklahoma State University out of Stillwater, Oklahoma. Winner of 35 NCAA wrestling championships, and I was still pushing to get whatever they got. But anyway, back to Stillwater, Oklahoma was the question you asked me about. The National Wrestling Hall of Fame was started, I forget the exact year, but it was started by Myron Roderick. Myron Roderick was my college wrestling coach, my brother Jack's college wrestling coach. Myron was a very ambitious man. He started the Federation for the Indoor Racquetball Association and held the first national championship with racquetball was under Myron Roderick's guidance. And he got the idea, you know, every sport has a great museum except amateur wrestling. And so what better place than Stillwater, where there's more national championships than any other place on the universe. So he did a fundraiser, and he raised the money. Myron was very good at that, raised the money, started the Amateur Wrestling National Wrestling Hall of Fame in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Well, a few years later, a very dear friend of mine and Mr. Bill Murdoch, Mike Chapman, got the idea 20 years ago. I mean, this is our 20th anniversary, and any organization that celebrates 20 anniversary's got to be a good organization run by good people, or it wouldn't last. About 6-7 years ago, the museum, the Dan Gable Museum, started running into a little leadership problem. Not from Mike Chapman, but from within. The board of directors couldn't agree or get the proper direction to go. And that meant for professional wrestling and George Tragos and Bill Tragos, George's son. We might not be sitting here today, but he made a fantastic donation to keep the Thesz Tragos Museum alive. And in other words, he made the donation to keep the Dan Gable Museum alive. And so Leroy and his group out of Stillwater, the National Wrestling Hall of Fame headquarters, saw that they were failing up here in Iowa. So an Okie come to the rescue of an Iowan. I'll probably get heat, but there's no Iowans in here right now. But so I'm safe, and I'm looking over my shoulder for Dan Gable, because last year I told the story about Suplex and Dan Gable, but it was a cardboard cutout of Dan Gable. I went into a convenience store and I saw this cutout. This guy selling Powerade. You know, hey, there's Dan Gable back there selling Powerade. It's 2:00 in the morning. You know, wrestlers are coming off a road trip. We have our designated drivers, of course, so I'm sitting in the back, have an adult beverage or two or three. And so we stop and we run out adult beverages. So I see this little 7-Eleven. I pull over here, go in, and there's Dan Gable at 3:00 in the morning. What the hell is Dan Gable, Olympic champion, up at 3:00 in the morning hawking Powerade for? Hey, Dan. So he don't look at me. Well, I won't get, okay, I'll show you. I walk up behind and I suplex the hell out of this cardboard cutout. This Iranian guy comes to running back to the back. What are you doing? Dan Gable. I got 5 points on him. I threw him. It's a damn cutout. Oh, I'm sorry. The displays of Powerade goes all over everywhere. But anyway, that's another. So I digress. So anyway, I'm a member of the Hart family. So I can go anywhere I want to go, right? So anyway, right. Where was I? Stillwater, Oklahoma. Great Stillwater, Oklahoma, 35 national championships, 34. We're in the hunt for 35. So anyway, Leroy called me. I'm in New York City. I'm not looking for salsa or anything. I'm just in New York City at a great organization called Beat the Streets, where they donate money and they get inner city ghetto kids to come out for amateur wrestling. And it started out with like half dozen or so kids. Now they got over 5,000. Now they got they have beat the streets in just about every major city in the United States. So it's grown like crazy. Mike
that's cool.
Started the organization. So I'm out there with Leroy at this, and Leroy's telling me, that they're going to take over the Dan Gable Museum, and Bill Murdoch and I were kind of forced out on the board of directors a few years earlier and wanted to know if we would come back. And I told Leroy, come back only when Bill Murdoch comes back. He said, well, I definitely want Bill back. So Bill's a smart one of you two. So Bill tells me everything to do and say. He told me to say that, by the way. He's the one with the Duke education, the Stanford education, and a Harvard education, and he's really a Tar Heel at heart. But he won't admit that, even though he's a Dookie. So anyway, Stillwater took it over, and since then, Bill and I came back, and we've been working very hard. We got the Harts back involved, and there was a lot of rumors and innuendo going around about the Dan Gable Museum dropping the professional wrestling wing. So, of course, we all got real paranoid on that, and that was the first question I asked Leroy. He said, not if you come back. We will never drop it as long as you guys are involved in it. So I gave Leroy my word. He gave me his word. And in the 8 years that we've been back doing this thing, we have grown leaps and bounds, and we're only getting bigger. And thanks to families like the Hart family, the Henning family, which will all be here tomorrow. Papa Larry will be here. Last year, Curtis Axel was here, the grandson. So it's, like I said before, this is a family atmosphere. And Stillwater is just like this place, only twice as big. And it only devotes its space right now to amateur and international wrestling. It's got Kurt Angle in there. It's got Danny Hyde in there. It's got Jack Brisco in there, and they got Bill Murdoch in there. And next year we'll have Gerald Brisco in there, which I'm really honored and pleased to say that next year I'll be a part of it also.
Well, all I can say is it's about time.
Thank you very much. And so it's an honor. This is a great place. It's a bucket list place for any wrestling fan. I don't care what style of wrestling you like, whether it's Greco-Roman, freestyle, folk style, professional, MMA, or whatever. This hall and the Stillwater Hall has you covered. And the staff is, you walk in the door, and they ask you, what do you want to see and what can we show you? And they'll take you by the hand and walk you around and explain to you, not only show you the exhibits, but explain to you what they are and what they represent, which is a plus, which a lot of museums don't have that time or opportunity to do. So anybody who's traveling up and down that interstate out there that's listening to us, and I know we're being broadcast globally, so jump on a plane, jump on a train, jump on a hydrofoil or whatever they are, a jet ski, and get your butt down here to Waterloo, Iowa.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, this is definitely a great show you did. We're able to get us on this evening here, Matt. I want to thank all our guests for coming on and the Hart guys and girls. We have Diana and Bruce, Ross, Keith, and we have our other guests who came on, including Gerry Brisco, Tom Simon, Bill Murdoch, Jason Sanderson, and Tony Garea, and of course Barbara Goodish and Gail Ellison. And listen, just before we go, because I've turned the mic over to everybody for an encore, but I forgot one person. I'd like to turn over to one of my dearest friends on this earth, is Miss Barbara Goodish, for a final few words. Barbara.
I just want to say what an honor it was just sitting here, listening to everybody talking, listening about Owen and Frank, who both of them are not here right now, but it's just an honor for everybody to remember both of them and for both of them to be going into the George Tragos Thesz Professional Hall of Fame, which I think I have been to several of the Hall of Fames, but this is the number one Hall of Fame. This is the only Hall of Fame that we have that is a legitimate wrestling Hall of Fame. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. I'm so honored to be sitting in such a great group of people. And as I think it was Jerry that said, we are a family. We're a family that we are connected in no other way that any other family is. And to come here and be with all of these wonderful, wonderful people I'm just honored to be part of that family. And just the honor of the weekend, as anybody, as Jerry said, wherever you are, come and visit Waterloo, Iowa, in the cornfields, Field of Dreams. And this is like a museum of dreams. So everybody, come on down, and at the Hart Beat Radio, Bob Johnson, Bruce Hart, what a wonderful, they invite me on. I'm always honored when they call me to invite me on. I get to talk to some wonderful people and meet some wonderful people, and just come to Waterloo, Iowa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara. And again, Bob Johnson, Hart Beat Radio, live from Waterloo, Iowa. We also can't forget Mr. Scott Teal had joined us earlier, and the director of the Dan Gable Museum, Mr. Kligman. But without any further ado, before I leave the show for the night, I'm going to turn it over one more time to Mr. Bruce Hart. I always introduce Bruce. He's a wrestler, a booker, a promoter, a referee, a mark, a podcaster, and
trainer,
and a trainer,
author.
So
author also.
And which author? Yeah, author.
He's an author.
Teacher
yep.
and teacher.
Them all in there.
An enigma.
Hell of a father.
And a hell of a father. And a grandfather now too.
Wow.
Anyway, that's our regular host of Hart Beat Radio, Mr. Bruce Hart, for a few final words. I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. I'm going to let Bruce Hart finish this beautiful evening off.
Thanks, Bob. I'd just like to reiterate how honored I am to be down there, and to thank Kyle Klingman and Dan Gable and everybody down here at the Hall of Fame. As somebody said, it's like wrestling equivalent of the Field of Dreams, and you really get that feeling when you're in here. So I'd just like to extend thanks and to say it's an honor and a privilege to be down here at the Owen Hart induction into the Hall of Fame, and just thank everybody down here. And I'd like to thank all the guests that are among us right now, and I can't express how grateful the Hart family is to all of them for taking from their schedule and joining us today. So thanks very much. We're honored and blessed, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you all next week and giving you the lowdown on the Hall of Fame induction and all of that. And it should be an awesome time. And as I said before, thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you to the entire Hart family and Mr. Brisco and the lovely Barbara Goodish and everyone else who's been involved here. But especially thank you to Bob Johnson, who works his fingers to the bone each and every week, nonstop for Hart Beat Radio. He is underappreciated, but very respected in my book. So thank you, Bob. And that's it for Hart Beat Radio.
So you're going to show where you stretch all those people? So you're going to show us the dungeon?
I might try to show a move or two. Yeah.
I'll take some moves, sir.
Can you feel that?
Oh, yes, sir. I don't feel my arms, sir. I can feel it.
Can you feel that, son?
Oh, yes, sir.
Red,
oh, yeah.
Rosy?
Yes, sir.
And by taking this arm back here, you just ease his hand into the position here. I got the power here to...
Up it, sir.
You're listening to Hart Beat Radio.